mate.
Hi, Charlie. Sorry,
You
mate.
alright?
Yeah, not too bad. You?
Yeah, I'm alright, thank you. Should we get started?
Absolutely.
So first of all, what made you join Dagenham in your playing career?
Couple of things. I knew a few people involved in Dagenham. I had at the time it was Ted Hardy and Dennis Moore as the management team. Dennis Moore, I was good friends with. I was good friends with Dennis Moore's son at the time, so I knew Dennis that way. Also, I had a few of my family that were already Dagenham fans, so they were more than interested when there was a little bit of interest in me going to the club. So yeah, and obviously the history of Dagenham, as I say again, knowing Dennis Moore through past as well, I knew quite a lot about the Dagenham history.
Brilliant. And I understand that you were captain at your time at the club.
Yeah.
What was it like being captain of Dagenham?
Oh, it's amazing. Amazing. I mean, I was there 6.5 years, and in that time, the sorts of positions that we found ourselves in the league, in the FA Cup, when the sorts of things that we were doing, playing in front of big crowds. So being captain involved in that, and it was just such a close knit team. And such a close fan base as well. Being captain involved in that was amazing.
Brilliant. And have you got any favourite games from your time at Dagenham?
Loads. Wow. I mean, starting in the first couple of years, I think the year that we got promotion from the Ryman Premier, we actually won promotion when we played away at Hampton and Richmond, and we were down to 9 men, losing down to 9 men, and we ended up winning 3-2 to actually clinch the championship. So that was an unreal game. I think the season after that is when we played in the FA Cup in the third round against Charlton.
Yeah.
Again, Charlton at the time were Premier League mid-table, so and we went to the Valley, and we were minutes away from literally beating them. And they got a deflected goal. John Salako, never forgive him for that. So yeah, but that was an unbelievable experience to have 25,000 people and literally they all stayed there, clapped us off at the end, and then we got the replay and we lost in extra time, which again was really hard, but amazing experience again. So yeah, they were a big couple. Obviously, we did have other FA Cup runs and big games. Playoff final against Doncaster. Again, amazing experience. Not a great ending for us, but amazing experience.
Yeah, and going to the other side now. Did you go through any bad times at the club while you were there?
Injuries. I mean, I would never say there was a bad time, because even with the injuries, you're still involved. You're still involved in the club and around the players, around the supporters. So I wouldn't say they were bad times, but they were tough in their own way, because I didn't have a great injury record. Generally, when I got injured, it was an operation at the end of it. So I think during my time at Dagenham, I probably had about 5 operations there. But yeah, they were the tougher times. But even then, like I said, I still had a great time, because you're still working around the football club. It's great.
And any who was some of your favourite players to play with at Dagenham at your time with the club?
Wow, again, really lucky with the time that I was at Dagenham, because I mean, even now we've got a WhatsApp group with about over a dozen of the old players, and obviously we're talking 20 years, still going strong with a lot of those boys, and it shows how close we were as a team, and I think that really did help with what we did at the club and what we achieved. But yeah, wow, we favourite players. That's really difficult. I mean, you had the likes of Paul Goffard, Tony Roberts, Ashley Vickers, Lee Goodwin, Mark Janney, Tim Cole, Paul Terry, Steve Heffer, Jason Brew, Matt Jones. Honestly, I could go on. Julie McDougall, Mark Keane. There's so many that, again, a lot of us still keep contact now as well.
Brilliant to hear. What I believe you one of your dad managers was Gary Hill.
Yeah.
What was it to work under him? Was it what was it like to work under him?
Yeah, it's good. He was. I mean, Gary was my second manager after Ted. Completely different styles of management. Gary knew how to get a good rapport within a team, and it worked well, that side of things, because technically I think Terry Harris at the time was assistant for Gary. Terry would do a lot of the technical stuff. Gary would do more of the motivation, and the way they worked is they wouldn't necessarily bring players in if they were the best players. They would bring players who were going to fit in with the team. And this, again, I appreciated it. You know, that made all the difference to how we played each game when involved. Never gave up, because you wanted to play for each other. And I think Gary had a very good way of getting the right players in.
Yeah, and you said about Ted Hardy. What was he like to work under?
Ted was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He was old school. And I say old school, even then, I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, but he was old school for then. He was no nonsense, just wanted to win, passionate, but such a lovely guy as well. Absolute diamond. So, yeah, you wanted to play for him.
Yeah, and was there any actually no, leave that for Leo. Tony Roberts, you said, did you play with him? Yeah.
Yeah, the Mad Welshman. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously Daggers Legend, as a lot of you guys are. Again, what was it like to play with him?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, he's professional and semi-professional record says it all. International, but absolute, as you expect a lot of the goalkeepers to be. As I said, the Mad Welshman. I remember one game, I think it may have been Telford away, and he started doing keep-ups in during the game, trying to go to centre forward on. And I think in that particular, I've seen him do that a couple of times, just doing flick-ups in the box, trying to get. We were winning.
Yeah.
Spend a bit of time just messing around. And I think this particular game, the centre forward went straight through him, took the ball, took him. I think the centre forward gets sent off. Tony Robbo actually reacted as well, so I think he got sent off. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. A real lovely guy.
Yeah, and I believe obviously you played before my time, so but I understand you were a centre back for Dagenham.
Yes, mainly. I tried to move into midfield a few times, but they kept pushing me backwards.
And who was? Can you remember any strikers you had a hard game against for the Daggers?
Oh, for the Daggers, it was usually, I ended up with a broken nose when we played a few of the northern teams. I wouldn't be able to say who that was. There was, I mean, I remember a tough game, and that was in a friendly against West Ham. Probably the hardest player I played against was John Hartson.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was just unbelievable. He was a really big guy, but really mobile, strong as an ox. I thought I was pretty strong as a player, but I bounced off him, and he knew where the goal was, so he was definitely one. But yeah, usually you always had a tough game against the northern teams.
And do you still follow with the club's results nowadays?
I do. Yeah, it's a bit tough at the moment, but yeah, I keep in touch. I should
Uh,
try and get over a bit more. I know the likes of Paul Cobb get over there when he can. But I've yeah, it's a shame the last year or so. I thought there was going to be a little bit of a change recently, but it's actually things haven't improved how we was
I
hoping.
think at the minute there's a chance of you getting your boots back on and playing for us.
Yeah, yeah, it might need a few braces and a few strappings, but I'd have a go.
Yeah, and what um what did he do as captain to motivate the team when the team was going through some difficult spells?
It's it's just leading by example.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I did shout when I needed to. I tried not to make that as the go-to for everything we did. Um, it was just never giving up. It was giving, and if you don't give up, and the people around you don't give up, and we seem to have that way about us.
yeah,
The amount of times I think we went behind in games, and we just carried on, and went on and got a result. I think just leading by example is probably the best thing you can do, and just keep motivating. That's it.
yeah, and I understand you played in the charity game last year for DT38.
I did,
How
yeah, brilliant,
how did he find that day?
amazing, amazing to be walking out with James Collins as captain. I'm a Dagenham and a West Ham supporter as well,
Yeah,
so yeah, to be walking out with James Collins, playing against those players who you've watched and idolised, as well as just to get on the pitch again. That doesn't come round often nowadays. So yeah, no, it's an amazing day, absolutely brilliant day.
and um as well as Dagenham, what are some of the other clubs you played for in your career?
I was always quite local, so I started off at Southend, and then I went on to Purfleet. Yeah, I know, don't. I was a young lad at the time.
I'll
Then I
let
went
you
over
off.
to yeah, I went over to Purfleet, who then became Thurrock. So then I came to Dagenham, and then just two afterwards was Hornchurch and Grace. So I was always with the local teams.
Um, and as a kid, did you always want to play in defence, or was it a different position?
Yeah, it was always the position I was in. It always suited me. So so yeah, it was a given. I did again. I did move into midfield, central midfield, at different times in my career, and um, as I say, after a few months, got moved back into central defence. So that was always the one for me.
And as a centre back, who was the best centre back to play with for the Daggers as a partnership?
Oh, the I mean the strongest back line that I can remember, um, or it always felt that way for me personally, was probably Tim Cole next to me,
Yeah,
um, and then Lee Goodwin right back, and Ashley Vickers left back.
yeah, and our former manager Ben Strevens, did you play with him, or was he later after you?
He was after me, so I met Ben a few times, but yeah, no, I never actually played football with him.
Yeah, and at your time of the club, who would you say was one of the best strikers for the Daggers?
Again, we had some unbelievable strikers. I think you need that to be successful. So you had the likes of Paul Cobb, who can find a goal from anywhere, and at any time. You had Junior McDougall, who, again, amazing athlete, would always score goals in big games as well. Mark Steen, who was, again, had an amazing career, and playing alongside him and seeing, even though when he was playing with us, he had dropped down levels compared to what he was playing at his prime, but still an amazing footballer. Amazing footballer.
Yeah, and a few more questions if that's okay.
Of course.
What advice would you give to young footballers now that want to get into playing football?
Naturally, I think the first one I would always say is never give up.
Yeah.
Never give up. Just keep going. I actually run my my son's under-17s team now, and I often say to them, you've just got to keep doing it. If you're trying to do the right thing, if it doesn't go right, doesn't matter. Do it again and again and again. It is all about repetition. The more you do these things and the more you don't give up, the better you'll get, the more chances you'll have. So yeah, they're probably the main bits.
Yeah, and any good stories about Ted Hardy while you were at the club?
I remember him doing a warm-up one time, and where the big stand is at the far end of the ground now, that never used to be there when I was there. It was just literally a small standing area with a small field behind, and we used to train out the back there with one spotlight, so it was pitch black. You could hardly see the football, hardly see each other. And Ted taking you used to do, I don't know, squat thrusts and everything that you would have thought, as I say, as an old school manager. He was like an army sergeant. So Ted doing warm-ups was quite fun. Also, he was only a little guy, so when we used to have a team talk, he used to come into the dressing room and he used to have to jump up onto the table and sit on the table, but his little legs were swinging around, swinging while he was having a chat with us. And he never knew players' names. So he used to come into the dressing room and occasionally be talking to a player and calling him by the wrong name, which was brilliant. But it was just Ted. We all knew it. He was just, yeah, he's great.
And how important were the fans, do you think, helping the players and the team to get success while you were at Dagenham?
Oh, it's the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing. I mean, even when I go back now, it is. I still see a lot of the supporters that used to be there when I was playing, and knowing you go around and you talk to these guys, and you're so in awe of them that they come and they want to watch you play football. You just want to do the best. You don't want to let anybody down. You don't want to let your family down. But I mean, you definitely don't want to let the supporters down. So yeah, that's massive that they appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think someone's just put in here about the Norwich game.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, again, it was Norwich were championship at the time, and same as Charlton. You know, we played them and we nearly won. Norwich was the fourth round of the FA Cup, and so we were literally, I think it was about 3 minutes away, level 0-0, and we would have gone to the fifth round, which unheard of because we were still part-time as well. We were one of the few conference teams that were still part-time. So for us to get that close again, but we had amazing experience for us. You know, we went up the day before, stayed at a hotel, had a little, pre-match meal, warm-up. It was just a great experience. And to play at these grounds in front of, as I say, those sort of crowds and compete we didn't get rolled over. You know, it was always they were always close games, even against these bigger teams, so-called bigger teams.
Yeah, and I don't know if he scored any goals for the Daggers, but if he did, what was your favourite?
Um, I actually I know how many I scored because it wasn't many. I think it was I think it was 9. But my favourite was we were playing Farnborough away, and it was an FA Trophy game. I think we were 1-0 down. I actually tackled somebody, and it was probably about 5 yards outside their box.
Yeah.
I actually won the free kick. He got stretchered off, and I took the free kick, and I just literally, as I say, it's probably about 22 yards out, and I've just hit it as hard as I can. It just went like an arrow and got us to penalties, and we won on penalties. So that was my favourite goal, definitely.
And last question, what? How do you think the current team will do for this season?
It's difficult to predict. I hope they just go on get a run of 3 or 4 games where they're getting decent results.
Yeah.
Keep them in the league this season, and then hopefully push on for next season. That's what I would hope.
All right. Thank you, Lee, for this interview. Thanks for your time.
You're more than welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Take care, mate.
And you. Cheers.